Oh, shit. All right, welcome. Looks like people are joining in. I'm a little behind the ball here, trying to get everything set up for tonight's show. Settle in, grab some popcorn, grab a drink. We're going to get started officially in about 7 minutes. I'm a little behind the ball, but we'll get rolling here shortly. I've got a lineup of things to talk about. This is going to be a bit more on the legal side, if you will. Tonight we're going to talk about constitutional rights in the United States. We're going to talk about the First Amendment, the Sixth Amendment. We're going to talk about gag orders in high-profile cases and how much the media can and can't get away with, what's legal and not legal for them to do when they're prejudicing cases. Lots of stuff to talk about. When we get done, we're going to have an after-hours party. That is the backstage, Devil's Advocates backstage or after dark party for 18 and older members. If you're willing to join in on that, you might want to pay attention. I'll show you how to get joined on that. Up above on TikTok, you should see our screen. I'm trying to make sure that my YouTube is going, and it doesn't look like it quite is yet. So let's see if YouTube's going. Are we not broadcasting to YouTube? Doesn't look like it, does it? Hold on. What's wrong with YouTube? I don't think I'm streaming to YouTube. Oh, because I'm on the wrong thing. Okay, hold on. Switch account. I may be streaming to YouTube. I just have to get on the right one. All right. It looks like I am, I think, streaming to YouTube as well. So let me get all my screens lined up. I need a bigger monitor. Talk to my wife. Let her know I need a bigger monitor so I can do this without hesitation. All right, let me get my screens up. That's going to be up. That's going to be up. I haven't heard anybody say anything from YouTube. If I get a sound check, if I can get a sound check in both TikTok and YouTube, do you hear me or do you only see my mouth moving and you're not hearing any words? I need to get a sound check or two from people to make sure that my volume is good in both locations. Looks like I've got Sailor Moon saying I'm okay audio-wise on TikTok. All right. If anybody's on YouTube, it'd be great if I can get a sound check. Just make sure that I'm broadcasting audio and we're not doing anything crazy like echoing. YouTube. YouTube. Can you hear me? Can you hear what I hear? Let's see. Okay, let's get, we're going to get rolling here in about 5 minutes, so settle in. Thanks for the likes to help get this thing started. My metrics aren't showing in the top, so it shows that I've got nobody watching the stream, but I know that's not true because I can see names in the thing, so I don't know what's going on. You hear me loud and clear. Hopefully not too loud. Misty Jane, thank you for YouTube. No echo, loud and clear from Rebecca. Thank you on YouTube. Looks like we're going to be good to go. Now I just need to get my notes on screen and make sure that I have visible real estate everywhere and that I can read my notes. So that looks like about there. And it looks like about there. All right. I'll be damned if it doesn't look like we're settled in, at least for the moment. So, the sound is okay. Maybe low. Start yelling. TikTok addict. Oh my gosh. Your sense of humor. I know I yell a lot. That's why I need to be reserved here. All right. I will try not to yell a lot. Some people appreciate when I get the passion going and I start shouting into the microphone. Other people tell me, "Oh my God, I would love to listen to you, but I can't handle you shouting." So you win some, you lose some, unfortunately. All right, so we got about 3 minutes before we get started. And I will start arranging myself to get ready to go live and talk about all the things that I want to talk about. I've got a fan blowing on me underneath the desk. I'm going to avoid any further commentary on that for the after party. So I got a fan blowing me underneath the desk. Is that too loud for the microphone? Can you hear it? No, Ali Benevento really wanted to be here tonight. I told her what I was going to be talking about, and she's like, oh my God, I love that topic. But she is out of commission this weekend. She's going to be busy, and she's going to be in a place with no cell coverage or very bad cell coverage, so she can't make tonight's show, unfortunately. But I was working with Ali to try to get her in here because I have some legal questions. Tonight's going to be about the law. It's going to be about the constitutional rights, and she wants to talk about that. Oh my gosh, Ali wants to talk about it. But I got to go with the show, and she's got to have her thing going on this weekend, and we'll get together soon. Her and I will do something for the show, probably on the same topic, where you can hear her opinions on everything I'm going to talk to you about tonight. Hello, Kimberly. Thanks for dropping in. Hopefully you're going to be in your moderator hat tonight. In New York, it's freezing. Oh my gosh, it's kind of cold here actually as well. My wife should also be moderating. So hope my wife's getting her laptop now. She's going to be settling in. 1 minute. 1 minute remaining in the period. 1 minute. I used to watch a lot of hockey. We got a low turnout tonight. I'm gonna try to pretend like I don't see that. I gotta do the same show, whether I got 2 of you or I got 200 of you. So I just gotta relax, just do my thing. Do. Luigi, yeah, that's right, Luigi Revolution. Now you have TikTok moderation privileges or YouTube or both. I think you might have both. I don't remember. Yeah, it's the long weekend, right? So it's a lot of people are going out of town for the weekend, which, might include Ali. I'm not sure entirely. I wouldn't tell her personal business anyways, but yeah. So that's why she can't make it here, is she got something else going on, and I'm not interrupting the family time, the private time, and we'll bring her on when we can get her in here. Yeah, Luigi Revolution, I see you in YouTube and TikTok. I think you've got moderator hats in both. Thank you for the gift, Misho. Appreciate giving me a gift to start out. That's fantastic. If you guys can, we're at the top of the hour. So anything you can do to get this, there's only 10 of you. Settle in. It's going to be just you and me tonight. All right, so let's do this. First of all, let me say that, let me remind you that tonight I'm going to talk a lot about the law. I'm going to talk about a lot about constitutional rights in the United States, particularly the First and the Sixth Amendment. This is mostly related to the Bryan Kohberger situation because of recent things that have happened in the case with the Dateline NBC special 2-hour special hit piece on Bryan Kohberger and the legal issues around it. But it relates to Luigi Mangione. So if you're following me for Luigi Mangione, you might want to still pay attention because the same kind of things happen in the Luigi Mangione case. That is, the media puts out documentaries on a high-profile case, and we're going to talk about the legalities of those things. What is legally allowed to be done? Because there's a lot of you who will say things like, that shouldn't even be legal. How are they legally able to do that? We're going to talk about the law, which is why I really wanted Ali to be here tonight. But again, conflict of schedules just didn't work out that way, so we'll bring her on another time to do that. Devil's Advocates 2 in the channel is my wife's channel. If you see that and you haven't done it, please follow her channel so that she can get up and have more options in the future to go live with me if she wants to, or whatever the case we may do with that channel. But we need to get that up. The letter log has a new update. I know that their letter log of Luigi Mangione had an update a couple days ago, but I don't know if it's been updated again today. All right, I'm getting off my topic. Let me start again. Everything you're going to hear tonight is educational and entertainment purposes only. I am not an attorney. I am not the news. But we're going to talk about that tonight. What is the difference? What is the difference between mainstream media and a YouTuber, TikToker / media influencer? Is there a difference legally? Do we have the same rights and protections to say what we think and what our opinions are? We're going to talk about that a lot tonight. So let's talk a little bit about the major highlights that we're going to do, and they'll get right into it. And again, most of this show tonight is in light of the recent dramatic events that have happened in the Idaho 4 case with Bryan Kohberger. NBC Dateline did a 2-hour special on Bryan Kohberger just months before he's going to go trial, and just a month or so before he's going to start jury selection. That 2-hour piece was very, very prejudicial, showing that getting my cases mixed up, that Bryan Kohberger is the man who killed 4 people in Moscow, Idaho. And the case, that piece was extremely prejudicial. A lot of people keep asking the question, how is that even legal for them to do these things and sway public opinion before the court comes out? It is legal. We're going to talk about why it's legal, and we're going to talk about the gray areas and when it's not legal. So this is part of what I want to do. I want to educate. I'm using high-profile cases to educate you on the law, the nuances of the law, what is and isn't legal and why, and talk about what I think is happening. Judge Hippler, by the way, after that special, and if you're following the Bryan Kohberger case, you know that Hippler pretty much is convinced himself, even though he's a judge and he's supposed to remain impartial, he does not look impartial to us, to the people who believe in the presumption of innocence. It looks to us like Judge Hippler has already decided Bryan Kohberger is guilty, and it's a formality, this whole trial, and a waste of everyone's time, and we need to hurry this up. And in that regards, he's been in a rush to start the trial, no matter how many times the defense says they need more time due to the volume of evidence that's put out. Hippler has repeatedly stated, you don't get any more time, we're going to trial, it's kind of inevitable, everything's on the table, the cards have been laid out, let's go. I'm not going to delay this trial. But something new happened. Dateline NBC put out a major 2-hour special implicating Bryan Kohberger, and in that Dateline NBC episode, they repeatedly said at least 5 times, I was counting, that they had never seen before information being released to the public that's never been made public before. Insider information, they cited the FBI, they cited sources inside law enforcement that they have obtained that have never been revealed to the public ever before. Now, after that piece, Hippler lost his legal shit. This is, the best that a judge can do to lose his shit. That's what Hippler did. Even though he is a kind of bored with the defense's thing, he basically said, Stephen Hippler said, after the Dateline NBC episode, it is clear that somebody currently in law enforcement or on the prosecution or formerly in law enforcement or the prosecution has been leaking information to the public despite the gag order in this case. This is a lot what we're going to talk about tonight. What is a gag order? What exactly is it? Who does it pertain to? Who does it silence? Who can go to jail if they break a gag order, or can anybody go to jail? What are the repercussions? We're going to talk all about that. What is a gag order, and who can be held accountable and under what conditions? What is legal for NBC to be able to do and not do, and all those questions. Now, I want to point out something else that's super, super interesting. This is speculation. I wish I could put, like I do sometimes on my long form videos, the word speculation across the top. This is pure speculation. I feel like I need to say that. This is speculation. But it turns out that the Gonzalez family, the father and mother of Kaylee Gonzalez, victim in the Idaho 4, Steve Gonzalez has been extremely vocal, going on all kinds of podcasts, all kinds of news stations, giving us new details all the time. He'll keep leaking things that he knows. He'll wait for the trial, he says, because you're going to find out this, you're going to find out that. And Steve Gonzalez, the father of Kaylee Gonzalez, his daughter was murdered in that incident in Idaho in 2022. He keeps leaking information to the public about things that we're going to see in trial. Is he allowed to do that? Well, let's walk through some of this speculation. Today or yesterday, I think it was, the Gonzalez family website on Facebook was removed. It was taken down to community guidelines violations. I am speculating, and I have speculated for some time, that a law enforcement insider or prosecution insider has been talking to Steve Gonzalez, and Steve Gonzalez goes to the media with it, and this is part of the leak, that Steve is part of the leak. Now their website has been pulled down, their Facebook page has been pulled down, and it's under community guidelines violations. I believe that there's a very strong possibility that the timing of this is because I keep calling him George Hippler, Stephen Hippler, the judge, has ordered an investigation into where the leaks are coming from, and he wants to hold people civilly and criminally responsible for the leaks that are hitting the media. So Stephen Hippler is furious, again in legal terms, as furious as you can be in a legal document, because they're reserved, they're professional, they don't pull the gloves off. But if you were to pull the gloves off, that's what Stephen Hippler did, and his big, I want to know who's leaking to the press, and I want their ass, and I want their name, and we will hold them accountable because we want to make sure this never happens again. And by the way, and I've said this before, whoever's leaking information has cost the state of Idaho a lot of money, because now it's going to be harder to seat an impartial jury. That's part of your right. An impartial jury is part of your right on the 6th Amendment of the United States Constitution. We're going to talk tonight about where does the First Amendment right to freedom of speech impinge upon the 6th Amendment right to an impartial jury and a public trial. Those are some of the nuances that we're going to talk about. We're going to use what happened in the Dateline NBC episode and Stephen Gonsalves and all these different things to kind of talk about real life applications of the law. Who broke the law, if they broke the law, and why? What is allowed and what's not allowed? We're going to get into the nuances of that quite a bit here. Many people have stated before, yes, devil's advocates, there's a gag order in the case, but it doesn't apply to the families. Well, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. We're going to talk about the nuances of that from my perspective. And again, I would have loved to have an attorney on here. By the way, I have a pinned comment. So can he do anything to several for repeating it? Can he do anything to several? So we're going to get into that, Kimberly. We're going to get, and whoever asked that question, we're going to get into, can Steve Gonsalves leak something and be okay, right? Because if we're going to get into the nuances, if the prosecution's forbidden from leaking to the media, can the prosecution leak to Steve Gonsalves and Steve Gonsalves leak to the media, and is that okay? Because it's not coming directly from the prosecution, it's coming through a family member. Is that okay? We're going to talk about that. So the ultimate question tonight, as the title of my show was, to gag or not to gag? That is the question. This is balancing the First Amendment right of free speech against the Sixth Amendment right to a fair and public trial. So I'm going to do my best as a non-attorney to give you my opinions and my analysis of how the law has been interpreted in the past, using court law and some examples so that you can see why I came up with my conclusions. And then we're going to talk also about the difference. What is the difference between NBC Dateline, which is we call the media, and the devil's advocates running his mouth? Because again, at the end of the day, let's be fair. Let's be fair. I have often shamed NBC for running a hit piece, but those who believe that Bryan Kohberger is guilty will ask rhetorically, I never really been asked this, but rhetorically they'll ask, what gives you the right, Mr. Devil's Advocate, to run your mouth saying Bryan Kohberger is not guilty, or that somebody else might actually be the correct? Why do you think you have the right to run your mouth, but NBC doesn't have the right to run their mouth and tell everybody in America that Bryan Kohberger is guilty? And at the end of the day, the difficult thing that you're going to want to struggle with a little bit is technically there is no difference between Dateline and NBC. They're allowed to tell you that Bryan Kohberger is guilty in their opinion, and I'm allowed to tell you that Bryan Kohberger should have the presumption of innocence until proven guilty. We're both allowed to have opinions. That's protected First Amendment free speech. So yes, unfortunately, as the case may be, in Luigi's case as well, it is perfectly legal for 4 different documentaries to come out and tell shit about Luigi Mangione, trying to convince the public that he is guilty before his first day in trial. It's legal in most cases. There's some nuances when you get into defamation of character, libel, slander, whether you purposely lied about something, that's a whole different area. But you are allowed to give your opinions, I'm going to quote Hippler, every day and twice on Sunday. You're allowed to give your opinions. And unfortunately, if we're going to live in a fair system, and if I want to be protected as the devil's advocates to tell you why you should presume innocence, why Luigi Mangione and why Bryan Kohberger should be presumed innocent until proven guilty, and why we should be able to look into other possible motives and suspects, if I'm going to be allowed to say that, I also have to allow NBC to come on and tell everyone in America Bryan Kohberger is guilty in their opinion, and here's why they think so. We are, at the end of the day, all of us are just sharing opinions. The difference becomes Dateline NBC has an air of credibility because they're a major news organization. And some might think that if they're a major news organization that they're more trustworthy. But we're going to talk about whether America has changed. Has America changed? Do people trust the media anymore, or are YouTubers just as trustworthy as a mainstream media source? Because we've found that mainstream radios are just running their mouth just like YouTubers are running their mouth. And at the end of the day, a lot of people go now to social media for their news. CNN is losing the battle to YouTubers and TikTokers, because people are going to YouTube and TikTok for their news, because people are losing trust in the mainstream media. So let's summarize just briefly before we get into this, what's going on with the issue at hand. On November 13th, 2022, 4 college students were murdered in Moscow, Idaho. A month or so later, an arrest was made of the lead suspect, Bryan Kohberger. It immediately drew huge public interest, perhaps because the girls were pretty young college girls, and it was a brutal slaughter of multiple people in a house, and it immediately drew national, if not international, attention. The judge at the time, very quickly in January, I believe, so the murders happened in November, the arrest was made in December. By January, the judge had issued what I would call an unprecedented gag order, which said that no one can be talking about this case in the public in order to protect Bryan Kohberger's right to a fair trial. The gag order originally was on the prosecution, the law enforcement, and the defense, because family members are presumed to be able to talk all day long about the case and their loved ones and what they want to talk about. That's usually allowed. And people have corrected me before. Mr. Devil's Advocates, the reason why Steve Gonzalez can run his mouth on TV all the time is because the gag order doesn't apply to the families. However, then the judge extended the gag order to say that attorneys and representatives of the families cannot speak to the matter publicly as well on anything that has not been released to the public. So a whole bunch of documents are being sealed from the public view so that we can't see them. And then the order is that the prosecution, the defense, or any attorneys representing any of the families or any official capacity representing any of the families cannot speak publicly about things that have been not made public. Now follow the logic. Steve Gonzalez's and his family, Steve and Christy Gonzalez, filed a lawsuit through their attorney to basically fight back against the gag order. They said it was too restrictive, that you can't prohibit the family from commenting on the death of their own child. And constitutionally, we have had problems with this in the past. You can't silence the public. You can't silence the families. And so it's been a legal gray area about whether or not the families can be silenced. And so maybe because of this, Steve's been allowed to continue to go on and take a very public role offering his opinions. The gray area comes in when Steve tells us things that appear to be leaks from the prosecution and law enforcement, who are specifically told you cannot. Law enforcement and the prosecution cannot, according to the judge, leak information to the public. And so while Steve might be able to offer his opinions all day long, and any family member or devil's advocates can offer their opinions all day long, I can't do so, and he can't do so if we're leaking information from the prosecution and the defense directly. There's where the gray area comes in. So, Stephen Hippler has basically threatened civil, criminal, or both charges against whoever is leaking information to the press. So the question becomes, was it legal? So, again, yes, unfortunately, Dateline NBC has every right to tell you why they think Bryan Kohberger is the killer. And as long as they couch it in things like they did in the episode, which is a lot of talk like, we don't know if Bryan Kohberger did this, but if he did, here's how he would have done it. We don't know for sure Bryan Kohberger was sitting outside of the house before they jumped in, but if he did, that's exactly what killers would do. We don't know if he was stalking the girls on social media, but if he did, that's how he knew the layout of the house. That's all allowed. That's all allowed. Unfortunately, that's all allowed. I say unfortunate because there's a difference between Dateline NBC and myself. There's an air of respectability. There's an air of authority with a Dateline NBC that Devil's Advocates channel doesn't have. For most of you, for many of you, I'm just an asshole running my mouth, pardon the French. But Dateline NBC is a credible news source who many people believe have a good relationship with law enforcement and therefore have trustworthy information. Whereas I'm just a guy sitting at home doing research on the internet. I can't be trusted. Dateline has vetted everything and can be trusted. Now, what I think you'll find is that Americans are changing their opinion. Americans are realizing that Dateline NBC is not doing any more of their research than I'm doing research. And they can be no more trusted with the facts than I can be trusted with the facts. And so more and more Americans' opinions are starting to turn away from mainstream media, but it's still in the balance. It's still in the balance of mainstream media's camp, right? Most people believe what they hear on mainstream media, but more and more people are starting to go to social media and media influencers that they trust, people that they think, hey, this person is just doing clickbait, but this other person, he's good or she's good, I'll watch them. America is deciding for themselves where they want to get their news, and that's coming, or their information, and that's coming more and more from social media because people have lost trust in mainstream media. So, let me make sure that we're clear about this. The practical, legally speaking, Dateline NBC has the right to say, I think Bryan Kohberger is the killer and here's why. New York Post has the right to say Luigi Mangione shot Brian Thompson and here's why we think he did. What they're not allowed to do is they're not allowed to lie, and specifically they're not allowed to knowingly lie. If they tell something to the public they know is flat out a lie, that's a whole different ballgame. But if they're just speculating, we have reason to believe, and that's usually how they'll couch it, we have reason to believe this is what happened. They can do that all day long, and it's frustrating for you and me who believe in the presumption of innocence until proven guilty in a court of law, because we know that that's swaying public opinion. We know that a lot of people out there are going to take what they have to say as gospel because they're mainstream media. But technically, if I want them to have the right, if I want to have the right to say that a man is innocent, I have to allow them to have the right to say that they think he's guilty. That's just the way it works. You can't have it both ways. So what is the purpose of a gag order? Well, to prevent prejudicial pretrial publicity. That's the main reason. They want to prevent people from prejudicing the trial before it begins, so that you don't go in and already have made up your mind what's happened in the case. In high-profile cases, more and more, we try people in the court of public opinion. Typically, gag orders only apply to the trial participants, specifically the lawyers on both sides, the investigators, and the witnesses who are going to go on the stand and testify. That's typically the only people who are gag ordered. So if someone's going to go testify against Bryan Kohberger saying, I saw him at such and such a place on such and such a day and I can place him at the scene of the crime, that person's not typically allowed to go talk to the public and go onto NBC and tell NBC, hey, I saw Bryan Kohberger at the house that night and I'm going to testify to it on the stand. That's not allowed. But again, a YouTuber can go on there and say, I saw this video and it looks like Bryan Kohberger walked into the store and I think that's Bryan Kohberger, so therefore I think Bryan Kohberger was here at this time. That's all speculative and it's all allowed to be said. There's a difference. There's a gray area. All right. So the reality of gag orders is this. Mainstream media often amplifies the state's narrative. That's the big problem. Almost every single time, mainstream media amplifies the state or the federal government's position. And so in reality what's happening is when the media gets involved in a high-profile case, it is one-sided, almost always in line with the prosecution and the law enforcement to say the guy is guilty. Now in reality, the media was designed to be a check, a balance to our court systems, to make the court system act in a transparent manner and to question authority. The media's job was originally, in my opinion, designed to question authority, to hold them accountable, to make sure that they're not doing shenanigans, to make sure they did everything right. But something's changed in America, such that media now more and more are just lapdogs for law enforcement and the prosecution and the government. And that probably has to do with money. I always say follow the money. As TV stations get more and more funding from government grants and other things, it comes with certain agreements. You'll be supportive of my ideas. You won't talk shit about law enforcement and the prosecution. And if you do these things, you'll get more money. And this is the system we live in. We've come into a system now where people are technically not forced to behave a certain way. They're incentivized to behave a certain way. So, in my opinion, I take a lot of flack as a true crimer from people who, and in fact, mainstream media will do the same thing. As a true crimer, I get shamed all the time. How dare you true crimers talk about these cases? You are hurting families. Don't you understand? Children died in this crime. The families are grieving, and you sick asshole are out there telling people that the killer who killed these kids is an innocent person or should be presumed innocent. How disrespectful are you to talk about these things? Now the problem is that what have we done in America when we have lost sight of the fact that our entire legal system is designed on the presumption of innocent until proven guilty? And so if the media is not going to do it, and they clearly are not going to do it, if the media is not going to say, hey, wait a minute, prosecution, wait a minute, government, wait a minute, state, how about we look at the other side of the coin? Maybe the guy's not guilty. Let's hold you to the accountable. They're not doing that anymore. That's falling now to the social media influencers, the people who are willing to question now not only law enforcement and the judicial system, but question mainstream media, because mainstream media is in bed with them. I got a comment here. The issue is how people talk about them, not talking about them. Yes, the issue is how you talk about them, not what you're saying. Everything has to be couched very carefully. Make sure you state this is an opinion. And again, as long as NBC says, we're not sure Bryan Kohberger did this, but this is what we think he did, they can talk all day long and prejudice the entire country if they want to. The First Amendment protects the government. The government shall basically says the government shall not infringe upon the public's right to freedom of speech. And by the way, it has been defined by public. That means individuals, not government accepted groups or organizations like mainstream media. In other words, the question is asked, does CNN have any higher level of protection of freedom of speech than myself at the Devil's Advocates? They do not. The First Amendment provides me the same level of protection that CNN has. I'm allowed to talk about any case I want to the same extent that CNN does. They have no right to talk about a case any more than I do. And the public seems to forget that when they tell me that I need to shut my mouth and wait until the trial is over and wait until authorities like mainstream media tell us what happened, because somehow they don't think I have the right. By the First Amendment, I have every right to give my opinion, as long as I make sure that I'm clear that I'm giving you opinions and not stating things as fact that aren't true. And if I ever cross that line, I can be held legally accountable, just like NBC can be held accountable. If I cross the line by saying, this is what really happened, so-and-so did this and killed so-and-so in the kitchen with the butcher knife, play a game of Clue, and I tell you that's what happened, and I don't caveat that by saying, I don't know if that's what happened, but I think it does, I could get in trouble. Somebody in that person's family can come and sue me for defamation of character. You just made everybody think that my son or my daughter committed a heinous crime and told everybody that it was a fact that they did so, and that's defamation of character. Now, if I say, I think they did, that one little word changes everything. I think this is what happened. That's my opinion. All right. Now, the Sixth Amendment is where it gets sticky. In the Sixth Amendment, here's a summary, basically, if you will, of the Sixth Amendment. In criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial and an impartial jury. That's the two big caveats of the Sixth Amendment. A public trial and an impartial jury. Unfortunately, in America, we are getting to the point now where we have more and more secret trials. More and more trials are conducted in which we are saying no cameras are going to be allowed in the courtroom. It is argued that that's already a violation of the Sixth Amendment, which is the right to a public trial where people can see exactly what's going on. But the legal system and law enforcement and the judicial system is continuing to push the boundaries to see what they can get away with. Which is why we're seeing more and more cases where the judges don't allow cameras in the courtroom, don't allow media in the courtroom, because they're trying to push whether or not they can get away with having the trial outside of the public view. But the part that people say is illegal is when our First Amendment rights of freedom of speech impact a person's ability to receive an impartial jury. So that's where everybody's sticking on, right? Is they're sticking on the impartial thing. So if NBC comes out and tells the entire nation, or whatever their viewership is that night, 200,000 people, 500,000 people, whatever it is, if they tell 500,000 people that Bryan Kohberger is guilty, can Bryan Kohberger get an impartial trial? or an impartial jury. Now, unfortunately, again, if you want to say it that way, I view it both ways. It's unfortunate and it is good, because the same protections that allow them to say what they say allow me to say what I say. It's just that they have a bigger platform than I do. But the impartial part is the thing. And here's the thing. Our courts have decided that primarily to protect the impartiality of a jury, that isn't done by controlling the media. That isn't done by controlling people's opinions. It's done through the voir dire process, which is jury selection. It's done through jury sequestration that you could do, through gag orders on the prosecution and the defense. Changing the venue is another common thing that's designed to help get an impartial jury. If you're in a town where the town is rampant and ready to hang you up and pitchfork you at the stake, they can move it to a different venue to give you an impartial jury. And that is the way that the courts have decided an impartial jury is protected, not by limiting what people say in the public. And that again means not limiting what NBC Dateline says and not limiting what the devil's advocate says. In theory, we have the right and the protections to say our opinions and our thoughts on the matter all day, every day of the week. Now, I hope you're not bored off your ass, so I'm going to try and cover some things. There's a case or two that I wanted to highlight. Basically, the New York Times versus Sullivan, 1964, the Supreme Court of the United States basically ruled that public figures like high-profile defendants, this would include the cases that I follow, Bryan Kohberger, Luigi Mangione, must prove that the media acted in actual malice. So in other words, if what they've decided is you're not getting an impartial or you're not getting an unfair trial just because the media talked bad about you. You have to also prove, according to the Supreme Court, that the media did it with malice, meaning that they knew what they were saying was false and they recklessly had a disregard for truth. One can argue, to Dateline NBC's credit, that Dateline NBC didn't lie about something. They just simply told you what they think is the case based on their insider information from law enforcement and the prosecution. They said, based on the facts that we have been given, this is what we think happened. Now, if it turned out that NBC didn't actually get those facts and made it up and lied about it because they knew it would make a better story, that would be different. That would be lying about something with reckless disregard to the truth, just making shit up because they want it to be more effective. That could be something they could be sued on. But it's a very, very, very high standard, and traditionally the courts have not ruled in favor of basically any situation where the media had done something wrong by talking about it. As long as they're just talking and they didn't purposely lie, they can give their opinions all day, every day. So, one can argue that gag orders in themselves make a trial secret. Everything about the trial is held from the public before they go to trial. Then the trial goes to trial and they don't allow cameras in the trial. It sounds a lot like a secret trial to me. That's a whole issue. We're continually, I think, fighting that in America about what is and isn't allowed under the Sixth Amendment, your right to a public trial. But when the government acts in secrecy, it creates distrust in the public. People tend to distrust the media and mistrust the court system and mistrust the government when they do things in secret. So they have that coming for themselves. All right. I want to talk briefly about the Nebraska Press Association versus Stewart, 1976. This was a landmark case where the Supreme Court of the United States unanimously, 9-0, agreed that prior restraints, that is gag orders, on the press are unconstitutional. So you can't gag the press. That was declared. It was a landmark case, 1976. The Nebraska Press Association versus Stewart. Supreme Court of the United States declared that gag orders cannot be placed on the press. The press is allowed to talk all day long, every day, about their opinions. I'm allowed to talk all day long, every day, about my opinions. The Nebraska state trial judge issued a prior gag order in that case, barring the media from reporting on confessions and other evidence in the high-profile murder case that he was on. The judge believed that this was necessary to prevent the prejudicial publicity and protect the person's Sixth Amendment rights to an impartial jury. But the Supreme Court struck it down unanimously 9-0, holding that the First Amendment right of free speech overrides that whole impingement of the Sixth Amendment. And I realize this isn't sexy. This isn't a sexy conversation, and it's maybe a little deep and a little hairy for Friday night. That's why we're going to have an after dark party where we're going to have a few drinks and let our hair down on Discord. So hopefully you'll join us at the end of the night on that, because we're going to need it after this. This is too deep. This is too heavy. Let's get fun and have a little fun with it afterwards. But anyways, so one of the things that was stated by Chief Justice Warren Berger in that statement was that prior restraints on the press are the most serious and least tolerable infringement on the First Amendment rights. In other words, suppressing the press. And by the way, I want to make sure you understand. I'm considered the press. The press has no... You don't have to have press credentials. You don't have to be approved by the White House to be the press. You don't have to have a press pass. If I'm reporting on a mainstream media case, like I do all the time with the Devil's Advocates, I'm considered the press. I have the same protections as the press. When they talk about prior restraints on the press, that includes me as a YouTuber, the restraints on the press is the most serious and least tolerable infringement of your First Amendment rights. So what does that mean? Again, it means Dateline NBC is allowed to talk all day long, all day to you about why they think Bryan Kohberger is guilty, and I'm allowed to talk to you all day long, all day, every day about why I say that you should presume innocence until proven guilty in a court of law. We're both allowed to speak our opinions, and they can even, if they want to, they can even say, in my opinion, Devil's Advocates could blow ass, that guy's a jerk, he's lying to you. They can say that, in my opinion, he's lying to you, and I can say, you know what, in my opinion, NBC is lying to you. We're both allowed to say that, and it's protected free speech. But again, who is obligated to do things is, where did NBC get that information? Did they get it from law enforcement? Did they get it from someone in the FBI? Did they get it from someone on the prosecution team? If they did, that is violating Bryan Kohberger's constitutional rights to a fair trial. And things can come down on that. All right, so the key takeaways really so far, we're at 45 minutes in. Are we at 45 or 35? We're at 35 minutes in. I'm ahead of schedule. So I feel like this is really deep, and I realize that not a lot of people are hanging in there. So I want to give you guys a chance to ask some questions before we go to the After Dark show. The key takeaway is this. Whether you're CNN or just a guy like me on YouTube, you have the same constitutional rights to report the truth. I feel like the real issue... Oh, I didn't tell you this. Let me tell you another thing. What's happening in the case... Jay Embry, of all people, Pavarotti, if you watch him on YouTube, had a really good take on this. What's happening is, after the Dateline NBC story came out, which again, in my opinion, unfortunately, as much as I can't stand it, Dateline was allowed to say what they said, because they were telling you a lot of times in there, we believe this to be true based on what we've been told. And it may not be. They said that several times. This may not be what happened, but this is what we think. They're allowed to do that. But after that happened, and the judge came out and said, it's clear somebody in the prosecution team or law enforcement violated my gag order, or the gag order, because it was originally imposed by a different judge. But they violated the gag order, and that someone's going to be held criminally and civilly responsible. And they're allowed to do that because that is called contempt of court. The court has a duty to maintain a fair trial. And if the prosecution's leaking stuff to the media to make a presumption of guilt before the trial, then you can't have a fair trial for Bryan Kohberger. So the problem, again, isn't NBC. The problem isn't Lee. It isn't Devil's Advocates. The problem is who leaked it to the press, information that when it got out there, it should have never been out there. That's what the problem is. So what Ann Taylor did is she said, okay, now that it's out there in the press, and let me word it this way. I want to make this clear. What Ann Taylor essentially did, I'm putting this through the universal translator. What Ann Taylor essentially did was she gave Hitler an ultimatum. Now, I will tell you this. If I were a judge, and if I was an arrogant judge, I would say, you don't give me ultimatums. I'm the judge. I make the decision. You can't give me an ultimatum. But essentially, that's what Ann Taylor did. She gave the judge an ultimatum. And here's the ultimatum. We're ready to go to court right now in the Bryan Kohberger thing if you take death penalty off the table. The reason being is because in death penalty cases, we have to fight every single minute piece of every bit of evidence that comes out at any time. And because this Dateline NBC piece has come out, and now we know, and follow the logic on this, people. If you don't understand this, this is huge. I can't believe I didn't lead with this. This is huge. Let's say that someone in the FBI who is going to testify against Bryan Kohberger is the source of the leak. Follow my logic on this. If the person leaking information to Dateline NBC works for the FBI and is going to go on trial, on the stand, under oath, and testify against Bryan Kohberger about things that they have leaked to the press, when it's found out that that person did it, he will not be able to testify in court. He will not. Because he leaked information and he broke the gag order. It's a violation of Bryan Kohberger's civil liberties, and they will not be allowed to take the stand, which could have screwed the entire case. So that is particularly the case when death is on the line. I keep thinking the Sicilian. Never miss a Sicilian when death is on the line. Sorry, it's a really bad. I love Princess Bride. I went on a side tangent. The point being is that when death is on the line, this is the main thing Ann Taylor says over and over again. When death is on the line, everything's different. Same thing with Luigi Mangione. When death is on the line, everything is different. The court is held to a much, much higher standard. So the ultimatum that Ann Taylor gave Hitler in writing in a 40-something page, I think, response was something to the effect of this. We'll go to trial right now despite the Dateline NBC shit, and despite the fact that you've leaked shit that somebody in the prosecution and law enforcement has leaked stuff. We'll go ahead and go to court on your timetable that you want in August if you take death penalty off the case. Because if death penalty is on the case, we have to not only fight all this extra information that just came out, but we also now, you have to understand, if it's a death penalty case, it requires a death penalty qualified jury. It's a different type of jury. It has to be a jury who's willing to give the death penalty. When you have a death penalty qualified jury, they are more likely to render a guilty verdict, period. It's the same reason, I don't know if I'm making any sense to you. It's the same reason why the federal government wants the death penalty in Luigi Mangione's case, and the same reason they want the death penalty in this case. Because it's more likely that you're going to get a conviction of some kind if you have a death penalty if death is on the line. I still want to say it with a slur. When death is on the line. Anyways, when death is on the line, you're more likely to get a conviction. So, going back one more time to Ann Taylor's ultimatum to Hitler. If you proceed with insisting we go to trial in August, despite the Dateline NBC hit piece that just came out, despite the fact that James Patterson has a book coming out 14 or 16 days before jury selection on the Idaho 4 murders, if you let those things happen, you can be virtually assured it's going to be a mistrial. We'll talk about Luigi Mangione, KFA, and getting a gag order for Luigi in a second. Thank you for that opinion. Leave that comment pinned for a second. So anyways, what she basically said, like I said, was if you take the death penalty off the table so that we don't have to do the extra work of vetting all this and preparing for a death penalty qualified jury, we'll go ahead and go to court on your timetable, which is in August, and we'll stay on schedule. Or you can keep insisting the death penalty is going to be on the table and we need more time, because if you don't give us more time, this is almost certainly going to be appealed every day and twice on Sunday, and you'll have to start the whole trial over again. So which one do you want to do? Do you want to go ahead with the trial too fast, and we're going to argue that you went too fast and we didn't get a fair trial for Coberger, and we'll start it all over again when we're done because you rushed us? Or drop the death penalty case and we'll continue. We won't fight the whole thing. You rushed us too fast. That was the ultimatum. Now, Judge Hitler may give them the middle finger and say, you don't give me ultimatums. We're going to trial in August and death penalty is still on the table. And he may roll the dice that they're not going to have to retry the thing. But that's what she's basically done, is you're going to have to retry this entire case if you go forward with this August trial in light of everything that's happening right now. So let's go to the pinned comment. Why didn't KFA get a gag order for Luigi? Well, again, keep in mind, the gag order typically, first of all, is issued by the judge, and it's typically to silence the prosecution and the defense from speaking to the media about things related to the case. So I don't know that it's all in her purview to do that. And in fact, Karen Agnifilo has complained multiple times that she is getting information for the first time from watching it on TV when law enforcement has clearly talked to the media before they've given it to her in discovery. She's already been making that case several times, and she's already stated it's a violation of Luigi Mangioni's civil liberties. You have to give his defense team proper discovery and let them know. And it's disgusting that I have to find out what you guys have against my client by watching TV and hearing it there first because you told media first. Whether the gag order is in place or not, that shouldn't be happening. And she's basically said you've already violated his constitutional rights. Can Eric Adams, Jessica Tisch, Pam Bondi, Trump, law enforcement be what? Sued for prejudicing Luigi? As Ali Benevento said in my show, it's highly, I think she said this, it's highly, highly, highly unlikely. She addressed that one night with me when she was on our show. People ask her all the time, hey, if I get off on this thing, her client, if I get off on this thing, can I sue the police department for trying to make me look like a bad guy? No, unfortunately you can't. It's extremely hard to prove prejudicial stuff. And again, there's a gray area on freedom of speech. People are allowed to tell you their opinions. They can tell you that in their opinion, they think a person's guilty. What they can't do is they can't factually lie and tell you something that's not true. And that's a gray area. I get it. It's a super gray area. Like, for example, when Pam Bondi says Luigi Mangioni is a murderer of an innocent man and father of two, that's really, really crossing the line of something that's illegal to say, because she can't prove that. If she had simply said, I believe Luigi Mangioni, that would have made all the difference in the world. If she would have said, it is our contention that Luigi Mangioni, that would have been okay. But what she said was, he is guilty of this. And yes, Karen Agnifilo is addressing that. She's got multiple complaints. She's asked the judge, and they have, to formally remind Pam Bondi that she's not allowed to say shit like that. And they have. She has been reprimanded in part by the judge, reminded of the law that she violated. But there's some gray area. Some mistakes are allowed to be made on both sides, and people don't go to jail. So I don't think that that's going to happen. I'll say Eric Adams did not say it was his opinion on the documentary. Right. Again, bad on these people. Bad on these people for not saying this is what I think and stating it as fact. That becomes a gray area. And let me say this, to kind of further answer the question, can Luigi sue them? Can Karen sue them? This is America. You can sue anybody for anything in America. So could he? Yes. Is he likely to win? That's the better question. Probably not. Not likely to win. But can he? Sure. You can sue anybody you want in America for anything you want, practically. Now, somebody might throw it out and say, well, this is a frivolous lawsuit, we're not going forward with it. But technically, he could. But will it stand up? Probably not. Looking for more questions. Somebody had asked in YouTube, what does AF mean? And I already kind of felt like I knew what that meant. As used in this sentence, I want to see solid AF with chain of custody in this case. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think what that would mean. I mean, AF to me means as, as F. But I want to see solid AF with chain of custody in this case. Yeah, I'm not sure. Where did you see that sentence? For some reason, my mind's not grasping it, and usually I can tell you. Was there a pinned comment I missed? Yeah, that's what I thought. Kimberly, that's what I thought too. Maybe they're meaning, I want to see solid as F chain of custody. That's what I think it meant. I want to see chain of custody that is solid as you know what. Alternative facts. Alternative facts. Let me reread the sentence. I want to see solid alternative facts with chain of custody in this case. Good question. Elliot, if you know how to interpret that sentence, then what are they trying to say? Because, I mean, I feel like I'm pretty good at interpreting those things, and I'm trying to understand what they mean by alternative facts. I want to see solid alternative facts with chain of custody in this case. Any other? I'm still waiting. We got a little bit of time. Let me remind you why we're doing this time. You might want to start if you're interested in joining us. I realize we got a relatively small audience, but I'm getting myself a little bit in the mode to go into weekend mode. I call it Weekend Lee because my name's Lee, right? So Weekend Lee is getting ready to come out on the Discord channel. This is going to be a private after party show where we don't have to worry about community guidelines, and I can say things very bluntly, and I can tell you I'll answer the most blunt questions. It's one of those ask me anythings. Ask me anything. I'll probably tell you in the after show. So if you're interested in that, it's for adults only. It's 18 and older. The video up above, if you look in TikTok, there's a link to it on my website. That website is devilsadvocates.info. And if you went there and clicked on the play sign, that play button sign that you see on the screen, that'll take you to the show that's going to start after this. But I need to shut this show down, and I'm going to relaunch that show. And I'm going to attempt, as best I can, to have Discord open, and the Discord channel is up there. So if you look in this link up here above, and if you can zoom in on your phone, it's got a Discord channel. It's got, and that could be, you could use your browser, or you could use Discord on your computer if you've downloaded Discord, the app. You can go to that channel and join the channel that's called After Dark. I'm going to be there about within 5 minutes of shutting down this live. I'm going to restart the live feed on my Backstage account, and that's Devil's Advocates Backstage on YouTube. I will start that live, and I'll be piping over the sound and audio from Discord for those who can join Discord, and we'll have a conversation. It'll be open mic. You'll get to talk about whatever you want. We'll be super blunt. We'll be super vulgar, and we will have some fun for a little while. Any other questions or comments? Oh, let's see. Elliot was answering how to interpret that. Maybe like when people call a politician out for spreading misinformation and they call it alternative facts. So maybe he wants to see alternative theory behind what happened in the case. So, yes, Elliot, that may be the case. Thank you on YouTube. I think it was YouTube that you were giving me that. I would argue my entire channel is alternative facts. I try to present to you what all other reasons are for things, and so I talk a lot about the alternative facts, I guess, if you will. But yeah, maybe that's what they mean by that sentence, that they want to see. They don't want people to give the whole, well, it's just alternative facts. Well, facts, yeah. Anyways, I don't want to go into say the stupid thing of facts are facts, because that's not something I believe in. Where's the phone call from McDonald's? Where's the phone call from the McDonald's? Well, I don't know where the phone call is. However, we were told in some recent court documents in I'm assuming you're talking about the Luigi Mangione case now, that the phone call came from the manager of McDonald's. A patron, supposedly inside McDonald's, informed the manager of McDonald's that there was a person in the lobby that they believe is the shooter from New York. The manager from McDonald's then called the police in Altoona and informed them, I think the shooter is here in my lobby and I can't go deal with it. And the police came to investigate. And then that person's name is in the public now as well. You don't see the website that I was referring to, or devilsadvocates.info? Or are you talking about the link to the Discord channel, https discord.gg, and then a bunch of characters, which is for that channel specifically? We got about 9 minutes. Any other questions? Friday nights seem to be my lowest night, which I guess is why I'm also adding in the after hours show, because it seems pretty consistent. Friday nights are my lowest nights. Although I'm pleasantly surprised to see that YouTube is slowly catching up with TikTok. We're almost even now. YouTube's been running just a hair behind my YouTube audience in lives, so that's cool. I just had to verify that I'm a human being for TikTok to stay alive. A lot of people wouldn't have called the police. Let's see. Where is the recording of the phone call from McDonald's to the cops? The 911 recording. There's a lot of information in this case that we will never see, including probably that phone call. So unfortunately, that stuff's kind of covered under what they call an investigation in progress. It's common in this country to not talk about things in an ongoing investigation. So it'll say, hey, that's an ongoing investigation. We're not going to release the thing. Now, when they want to release it, it usually almost every single time is something bad for the defendant. So the fact that that hasn't been released to the public almost tells you that it's not bad for Luigi. That phone call, if that phone call was bad for Luigi, we probably would have heard it by now. If the body cam footage of his arrest was bad for Luigi, we would have saw it by now. But because he didn't fight back and punch an officer in the face, there's nothing to show us, so that will just stay as part of the hidden discovery for them to see in court, because it doesn't make good news. If it had made Luigi look bad, it would have been all over the news. Oh, good. Someone was able to post the Discord GG link by taking out HTTPS or something like that. That's cool. It should be above in TikTok, or if you're on YouTube, it's off to the side. Oh, am I frozen? I may be I don't know. I'm not frozen on YouTube. It looked like I was frozen. It's just a massive delay. I don't like that the old man witness says he was masked. How did the McDonald's person recognize him? Carol, that is, I don't think anybody buys it. Just like the police officer, that according to the official records now, the police officer basically indicated when he arrived in McDonald's, even though Luigi Mangione was wearing a mask, he immediately recognized him as the shooter in New York and proceeded with his investigation. He's got better eyes apparently than everybody else in America, because most of us probably wouldn't have been able to identify that. Conversely, I live in a small town where half the time I think I see some actor walking in Safeway, but it wasn't that actor. But I'll be like, oh my God, I think I saw a guy that looks like Rob Lowe walking through my Safeway. And it probably wasn't. So people get it wrong the other way. Not only do people not identify somebody when they're standing right in front of their face, but they often misidentify people. Somebody says here, now that I'm subscribed and I'm ultra super popular, like a magnet, maybe you'll get a fresh new tsunami of views and new subscribers. Well, that sounds amazing. Do you have a lot of pull? That would be amazing. Any other comments or questions? We got about 5 more minutes before we shut down for the after show. Now I feel horrible, because if Elliot Polak is Polach, I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name, if he's like got a good channel and I don't know about it, then I feel like an asshole for not knowing the name. All right, other comments, questions? Give us a few minutes. And the Altoona bus driver Greyhound did not recognize him from either a map. Right, but that, like, again, I mean, the story that the officer gave about immediately recognizing Luigi Mangione in the thing was just to cover why they felt that they had the right to investigate him. It's the same reason why the officer who got caught checking out Luigi's bag without a warrant said, well, I thought there was a bomb in the bag, so I was checking for a bomb. It was the oh shit moment of realizing that I can't just search somebody's bag without a warrant unless I can come up with a story for it. Oh, I can't just interrogate Luigi Mangione unless I can come up with a story with it. Oh, I immediately recognized him as the shooter. Oh, I thought there was a bomb in the bag. Elliot's not going to bring in those massive amounts of subscribers with his 0 subscribers and 0 views and 0 videos. It's all good, brother. Deadline for the response in 4 days. What are they gullible and easy to manipulate? I hope KFA presents all of that. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so I'm keeping up with both of these cases. I will be doing, again, let me give you a quick rundown. I'm going to do my close. I'm going to do my close now. Devil's Advocates channel, if for some reason you're new here, I go live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I've also added in this after party show that's coming up. As soon as I shut down, I'm going to go to Discord and I'm going to fire up the Backstage account on YouTube and stream that audio over there on Friday nights. In addition, I've added a new time slot for people in other time zones on Tuesdays and Thursdays at noon Pacific Standard Time. And I found that a lot of people are new to the channel because we're going at a time that they can't make. They originally couldn't make my evening shows, but they can make the daylight show. So I'm trying to do more to make us more available to more people more of the time. And what else can I tell you? Throughout the week, I have a publishing schedule. I'm covering 2 books. A book that I call Luigi Mangioni's Bookshelf. We're covering a book called An American Sickness by Elizabeth Rosenthal. It's a book that Luigi Mangioni allegedly said that people should educate themselves about if they want to know how bad healthcare system is in America. We don't know that he really said that, but if he did, we're reading the book anyways. We're also reading Howard Bloom's book, When the Night Comes Falling on the Idaho 4. By the way, I'm rushing now. I'm going to be rushing and picking up the pace to finish Howard Bloom's When the Night Comes Falling because James Patterson's new book is coming out July 14th or 16th. I have purchased the book, despite the fact that I'm giving money to somebody to do a hit piece on Bryan Kohberger, and it does look like it's going to be a hit piece on Bryan Kohberger, and James Patterson co-authored it with another author. So this is usually what happens. Patterson's getting older. He's on his way out. Now he's helping up-and-coming authors get started by putting his name, James Patterson, at the top of a book that somebody else wrote, and he helps them, he guides them, he mentors them, he makes the language better, and he punches it up to give it that dramatic feel. He helps them launch their career by lending his name to it. So James Patterson's new book, along with Vicky, whoever who wrote the book, it's coming out unless Hitler puts in some kind of injunction and somehow stops the publication of the book that might impinge upon Bryan Kohberger's presumption of innocence. But again, I don't know that he can do that because people are allowed to give their opinion. And as long as it's done as an opinion and not this is the facts, it should be allowed. All right. I think that's it, folks. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm looking at the time. I'm going to shut down this live. I'm going to shut down live on YouTube. I'm going to shut down live on TikTok. I'm going to take a little drink break to go to the other room, get settled in, let my hair down proverbially, and then I'm going to refire up the Backstage Pass live. It'll go live. I'll also have Discord running. In fact, you can go to Discord right now. If you have that link, jump into the Discord channel if you're not already there. When I get back from shutting everything down, getting a drink and settling in, I will put some headphones on. I will pipe into my Discord channel. I'll start talking to you. I'll then do some sound checks to make sure that we're broadcasting also over to the Backstage Pass area on the YouTube. The Discord channel is right above me here in TikTok or to the side of me in YouTube. We can't seem to get URLs to post very well. Maybe we can do it. I'll try. So if it's Discord, I'm not going to put a hyphen in front of it. B 2 J 4 Q. I don't know if that'll show up. I didn't put the HTTPS in front of it. That's the address, https://discord.gg.z C lowercase b uppercase b the number 2 lowercase j the number 4 and lowercase q. That should pop you into it. In the meantime, everyone have a great night. I will see you on the After Dark show in about 5 minutes. Adults only, again. So if you have problems getting into it, it may be that you haven't verified that you're 18 or older. You have to be 18 or older to join the YouTube channel. So if you can't get to the YouTube channel, it's going to block you if your account's not set to 18 or older. It doesn't mean everything you watch is 18 or older. You just have to have verified that you yourself are 18 or older. See you in a few minutes.